Good morning to everyone tuning in live and to everyone that'll listen back. It's a very special episode of Tree Talk, episode 200, which takes us back nearly 4 years to the end of 2018. And we just missed the first Limerick success, but we've been laden in success since then. Limerick obviously completing a 3 in a row earlier this year. And in today's episode, we will look back on, I suppose, the top 10 moments or 10 of the best moments from that time period from November 2018 to today. But first, as always, we'll get to our local action. We've another feast of hurling this weekend. We obviously had the 4th round and 5th round from intermediate at the weekend, and we've the final round in a lot of those championships this weekend. We had the quarterfinals in the ladies football, and we have the final round of the camogie to look forward to. So stay tuned for all that and more.
Impression again, we get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tommaso Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Curry. Curry leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it hard. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
I suppose, Matt, 4 years, where does the time go? You've been there since the very start, yourself and Raf, when it was only an audio podcast, and then I came along during around the COVID time, and we went to video and everything, and it's really blossomed since then. But I suppose when you started back in November, Limerick had obviously won the All-Ireland, it was a great time, but you couldn't have envisaged what was to come, not only for the Limerick senior hurlers, but also the footballers who were, very loyal at the time and had so much underage success and individual success in all sports around the GAA. It's just been an incredible few years.
I should look, it has been an incredible odyssey, Jack. You'd really have to pinch yourself and to believe that it's true. And we'll be looking back. Basically, that's what we'll be doing with our 10 moments over that period. And I suppose it will give a sense of what has been achieved in that time. It has been simply phenomenal, because to think that we were 45 years without an All-Ireland, it's like the buses, waiting all day for one and then a couple of them come, 45 years waiting for an All-Ireland, and then 4 of them come in 5 years, and you just wonder in 2019 in that semi-final, could we be talking about a 5 in a row at this stage? Look, we'll take what we have. There's no changing of that now. But it has been simply phenomenal, Jack. It has been phenomenal. And the mood among the GAA family and the county is at an all-time high, and rightly so. I think people are. A lot of people are struggling, of my vintage anyway, Jack, to come to terms with exactly what has been achieved. We have to pinch ourselves ever so often and say, is this for real? There was 45 years of failure. No, well, 40. I hate using the word failure. 45 years of frustration and disappointment would be more like it. There were a number of false dawns in that period. You had 1980, 94, 96, 2007. And when it all came together in 2018, Jack, it was very, very special. And what has happened in the last 3 years, Jack, for half a century, Jack, in Limerick, that was unimaginable.
Yeah, it's still, as you said, it's still hard to come to terms with all the success that those lads have brought on us. And it's a nice segue into, I suppose, the news yesterday. They released a jersey, I suppose a unique special jersey. There it is, modelled by Darren Burns, Keane Lynch and Kyle Hayes. A chance, I suppose, to get your name on a Limerick training jersey. They're going to wear it in the warm-ups for the Munster Hurling League, which they're currently the the champions in. They won against Clare earlier this year. But I suppose you can see the kind of white marks on the jersey. That's names of people. If you subscribe to the jersey, you get a jersey yourself. Your name will be on it, along with all other subscribers. You get a Limerick beanie hat and a letter from John Kiley and Declan Hannon. And I suppose it just the funds raised from the jersey will go back into the players' fund, into the holiday fund, I think. And look, these lads deserve all the holidays in the world for what they've brought to Limerick over the last 2 years, as we were talking about there.
Well, Jack, for 45 years, if we could subscribe to a jersey that would help us to get an All-Ireland, we would have gladly done so. These lads have got us 4 All-Irelands. If any group of players deserve a holiday, and a good holiday, Jack, it's this group of players. And I would appeal to people just to buy this jersey, and to it's a way of saying to the lads, thank you for what you have been done. You've taken us to a place where we could only dream of. And you must remember, Jack, and I make this point very, very often, and will continue to make point, like that these lads, the level of sacrifice that these lads make, and to basically for our to get honours themselves, but for all our gratification. And like they put their lives on hold for 6 months every year, to devote their time to being the best they can for their county. And then they have to turn and throw in their lot with their clubs. But like, you must remember, when we're sitting down watching our television and enjoying whatever we watch on television, I don't watch much of it, to be honest, but a lot of people do, are doing whatever we are in the months of January, February. These lads very, very often are out in the cold and the wet, preparing for the summer and preparing to give us as much enjoyment and as much pleasure as they can from the game of hurling. And this is an opportunity to give something back to them. Yeah,
and I think it's just deserved, I suppose, for those lads, as you say, for the hard work they put in. So for anyone that's able to subscribe to the jersey, you would appeal to them to do so. But I suppose it just goes to show that the return of the Limerick hurlers isn't that far away. Like, I mean, we're only, I suppose, 4 months max till we see them back in action, even less. But, you know, you were talking about there about the success we have, and it goes back to the players in Limerick, and we saw a feast of hurling at the weekend. I know we'll touch on it more in depth, but like some of the play from individual players in the senior championship has been exemplary. And I suppose at the weekend in the 4th round, I'll just go through the results. And we'll start with the senior championship, as we always do. In Group 1, the Piercing have topped the table, 220 to 13 point winners over Adair. Kilmallock kept up the pace, 122 to 116 winners over Ahan, and so did Doon with that late win over Patrickswell, 219 to 121. Patrick Cummins last minute goal. And we'll stay with Senior A for a second, Matt, there. And I suppose the results of the weekend offer up some very, very interesting clashes this weekend. All 6 teams can still go through, which I think is great going into the final round. Now, some of it's more unlikely than others. We know in a Pierce you're in a semi-final, that's grand. But starting with Doon versus Kilmallock, winner takes all clash this Sunday in Fedamore. You know, winners there, and you're joined the Pierce in the semi-final. If you lose, like, potential for a treacherous quarter-final, you know, it's a knockout tie, really. I know neither team will be knocked out as such, but like, you'd want to get one on over another, because there's a high chance that they'll meet again somewhere down the line. It's really promised to be a cracker, Matt.
Yeah, I suppose it's the standout fixture of the weekend, and now all the A games are on Sunday evening at 2:30. They were originally scheduled for 4 o'clock, but that has been changed to 2:30. There's something riding on all 3 games. All 6 teams have something to play for. All 6 teams have the potential possibly to making it to the, well, of course, 3 of the knockout places, Jack, are spoken for. In that the Piercing, no matter what happens, they're in the semi-final. Kilmallock and Doon, no matter what happens, they're in the quarter-final. But whoever wins that game, that mouth-watering game down in Fedimore on Sunday evening, they will be through to the semi-final. Now, I saw both sides over the weekend. Kilmallock have put on very, very impressive performances, I think, in the campaign to date. I think the performance against Doon, we certainly wouldn't rank up there with him with the very good performances. I thought it was slightly less than impressive performance. They went into the game as raging hot favourites. In the first 7 minutes, they had a goal and 4 points on the scoreboard. But after that, a hand dug in, led by Tom Morrissey, who was simply phenomenal, and ended the game with a goal and 10 points, which is incredible. And they really made it difficult for Kilmallock. And at one stage, facing the 50th minute, there was only 2 points between the sides. And briefly, for a minute or two, that one got the sense of, hey, there may be an upset on here. But Kilmallock regrouped and saw out the game. But I don't think Kilmallock will be entirely happy with the performance. It certainly wasn't their best performance. But in total, I suppose, in the greater scheme of things, they will probably be happy to get that type of performance out of their system and out of their way. Now, they face a Doon side who were pushed extremely, extremely hard by Patrickswell. And like, people have been writing the Patrickswell hurling obituary over the last couple of weeks, and there was a certain element of justification to it due to their appalling performances, you would have to say, against the Kilmallock and against Na Piarsaigh. But this was the reincarnation of the Patrickswell of old. We saw that it was led by Aaron Gillan and Dermot Burns, who were simply absolutely immense. And like they will be very, very disappointed that they didn't win the game, because it was level in injury time. Patrickswell sent over Calvin Carroll sent over a point. Dermot Burns added to it. They went 2 clear. Right at the death in the 67 minutes, it was Patrick Cummins who came up and got the goal, the saviour for Doon, and clinched the win for Doon. It was a very, very good game. In my view, and from what I'm hearing, and I was at 4 of the senior games at the weekend, it was without doubt the game of the weekend. Now, Doon are on the accomplished side, and they were without Adam English. But their game with Kilmallock will be extremely. It'll be a huge test of Doon. We will know exactly where they are. Now they really put it up. We'll say they're one of the teams that have been in the semi-finals for the last 4 years. They really put it up to Na Piarsaigh. They just got over the line against Patrickswell. And now they would have another severe test against Kilmallock.
Yeah, Kilmallock are more of the form team coming into the game, as you said. And obviously they beat them in last year's semi-final, a game that Doon were fancied for. So I suppose that'll linger over them as well. But as you said, both teams are through anyway, but it is a chance to lay down a marker. And I'll get your prediction at the end. But similarly, Patrickswell and Adair meeting a really fascinating clash, and you could be in a quarter-final as easy as you could be relegated for those teams. Obviously, a hand Na Piarsaigh playing the other game, as you said, Na Piarsaigh will top the group. If a hand beat Na Piarsaigh and Patrickswell beat Adair, then a hand will be relegated. If Adair win and a hand win, then Patrickswell will be relegated, which is a hard thing to consider. But just on Patrickswell versus Adair.
Just on a point of clarification with regard to relegation, if 2 teams finish on the same points, it's a playoff.
It doesn't go head-to-head.
No, it's a playoff. I've spoken with the county secretary in the week about it and got clarification on it. If 2 teams at the bottom, and the same goes for the Premier Intermediate, if two teams now, the intermediate is different because you have two groups, so the relegation final is between the bottom side in each group. But the relegation from Section A, if two teams finish level on points, it's a playoff. The same in Section B, but it doesn't apply in Section B for this year anyway, because unfortunately Blackrock are gone. And the same will apply for intermediate hurling. If, for instance, Knockany can extricate themselves out of the position that they're in and maybe finish level with the side that's immediately above them, then that will go to a playoff.
Okay, so that means that if a hand and Adair are level at the moment, if both of them lose, they'll be in a playoff. If they both win, they'll pass Parswell, so we know playoff. But on Parswell versus Adair, like it has been quite a close game in recent years. Like, you know, they're near enough to each other. Parswell seemed at the weekend, it was definitely their best performance of the year. They should have beaten Doon. I think they should have probably hauled someone down in that last play. But look, they seem to be more in their groove. But Adair it's a huge chance for Adair, and it's a chance to break that monopoly. And we're not discounting a hand, but their task is more difficult when they play in the Piershig. But, you know, Pash will have to be favoured, but we could see the monopoly broken this weekend if Adair can get over the line. And there has been some glimpses of their performance. They have been a bit porous at the back, which if they can tighten up, they do have scorers going forward. And obviously they have Declan Hannon at centre back, the best centre back in the country. So, I mean, it is a really fascinating kind of game.
It is a fascinating game, and you know, the history between the sides has also been fascinating. And if we don't have to look very far back, only to last year's quarter final, when it took the late intervention of Jason Gillan, which was at 4 points, bang bang bang, in as many minutes, that rescued it for Patrickswell when Adair looked like as if they were heading for a semi-final. And you know, it's a cliche to say that form goes out the window when certain clubs meet, but it really applies in this one, Jack. They're very, very close neighbours. They're very, very, very keen rivals. And it is very, very, very hard to call what might transpire between them, and or what the outcome of the result might be. And based on their performance alone against against Doon last weekend, the scales would seem to be tipping in favour of Patrickswell, that they may be about to find some sort of form. And Adair, Jack, for the most part this year, have been disappointing. They've been disappointing. Like, you know, they got a desperate trimming from Kilmallock. They got a great start against them. Got a great start against Doon. And, you know, Doon just came back and blew them out of the water. I think it's challenging times for Adair. And I think you're right when you say that a hand's task is bigger, but I think if the Patrickswell that I saw last Saturday evening turns up at the weekend, it's going to be very, very challenging for Adair as well, I'm afraid.
Yeah, look, it's obviously going to be challenging. Like Parswell were in a county final last November. Like, it's not that long ago, and you know, we mentioned every week, but losing Keane Lynch has obviously played its part. But you know, it's there. There's a huge chance for there. Like, it's rare enough that, you know, there has been a discrepancy between the top four and the next two, and it's rare enough that one of those bottom two teams have had the chance in the final round. But that's Adair's, and it'll be interesting to see how that game plays out. Those games, as you said, are on this Sunday at 2:30. It's a hand versus the Piershig in Kilmallock, Doon versus Kilmallock in Fedamore, and Adair versus Patrickswell in Askeaton. Again, all those thrown in at 2:30. Then moving into Group 2, Matt, and I will get your predictions for all those games that are on. Like, it's, I know I've used the word fascinating a number of times, but like, looking at this table, Ballybrown and Kildare Palskenry are both on 6 points. Then Garsplan, South Liberties, and Mungo St. Paul's are on 4. As you mentioned, Blackrock have been relegated, but there is a scenario where we have 5 teams on 6 points, and you'll have both quarterfinals and the promoted team going through on points differential. For that to work, Mungar St. Paul's have to beat Blackrock. South Liberties play Ballybrown. If they win and Garrison also beat KP, there'll be 5 teams on 6 points, and then you get your calculators out. They're like Kildare, Pallaskenry and Ballybrown will both be favoured to come through their games, but you know it does say a lot for the competition that there is a chance for 5 of the 6 teams to go through on the final day.
It does. It's absolutely fascinating. But looking at that graphic, it would appear that if in that scenario of 5 clubs finishing on 6 points, that it would be still advantage Ballybrown and Kildare in terms of scoring difference. Mungar St. Paul's would be at a disadvantage were it to end up with 5 6s in that they're minus 14 as far as I think. Jack is. Can we just look at the graphic again?
I'll get the graphic up there for you now, mate. Minus 14,
yeah, you see you have Ballybrown on a whopping plus 26. You have Kildare plus 16. Garrisballan plus 2. Liberties minus 6. Mungar St. Paul's minus 14. So were you to end up in that scenario, it would be very, very hard to dislodge Ballybrown and Kildare out of the top 2 spots. But in that scenario, were Ballybrown and Kildare to win this weekend, Kildare would go up as would be promoted to Section A for 2023. But were all 5 teams to end up in 6 points? It could change the dynamic, and Ballybrown have a slight advantage in that at the moment.
Yeah.
And it might be Ballybrown would be playing Section A next year. So it's an absolutely fascinating weekend. It's a one that's hard to call. It's one that you would absolutely dream of. But it gives you an idea of the sense of how even the teams are in that particular group. And as I said last week, now Blackrock suffered a heavy defeat to Kildare Pallaskenry. Like there was a couple of games there that were only beaten. So, like, you know, the story would have been different for them, you know.
Yeah, it really could have, but I suppose that's just the way it falls. You know, it's just there's an awful lot going on in that group, and I suppose to take them individually, Ballybrown you'd have to fancy against South Liberties. South Liberties were beaten by Mungar St. Paul's the weekend. I was at that game. That was also a very, very good game. Very late. Rory Duff score won it for Mungar St. Paul's. But Ballybrown got back to winning ways against Garrisballan. You were at that. Were you impressed with them after losing against KP the previous round?
No, I was not. I wasn't as impressed with him as I was earlier in the campaign. Now they were down Stevie O'Reilly, Tomas O'Connor, Josh Adams, and Andy Cliff, which is quite a substantial amount to be down. But like the situation was, Jack, that with 15 minutes to go, Garrisballan led by 3 points. Ballybrown were reduced to 14 players with the dismissal of Colin Coughlin. And it looked on a plate for Garrisballan. But it was then that we saw the best of Ballybrown. And I asked myself the question, like, why did I need something like that to be the catalyst to really get going? Now, they moved Aidan O'Connor to out around midfield. And it was a rival, the Rovers' performance by him. He was absolutely outstanding. Brian Griffin started winning primary possession in the half-forward line, and they landed over 7 unanswered points. It was kick-started by a long-range point, and we were talking about him off air, by Mikey Gavin. Mikey Gavin stepped in at centre-half back in place of Stevie O'Reilly, and for the second or third time this year that I've seen Ballybrown, I have been hugely impressed by Mikey Gavin. But they landed 7 points without reply, and the solitary reply from Garrisballan in that spell was with literally the last puck of the game, Dylan O'Shea sent over a long range point. So, you say to me, was I impressed with Ballybrown? Very unimpressed for 45 minutes, very impressed with him for 15 minutes. But why can we not see it for the hour?
Yeah, they'll need it. They'll need it for the hour this weekend with South Liberties in tow, because South Liberties, to their credit, they started really well against Mungret in Clahan last Friday. They were ahead at the half. Mungret got drew level where Brian O'Mara goal midway through the first half, but then South Liberties pulled away again, and it was kind of going that way in the first half. Then Mungret went 5 clear, and South Liberties got a goal. Barry Nash with a nice flick to the net, and they pulled clear again. They were level again, and it was a brilliant game now, in fairness. And as I said, it was a Rory Duff point with one of the last pucks of the game. He won his own puck out over on the sideline, straight over the bar. But South Liberties did show, like, that why they were up there. A win would have put them level on 6 points with KP and Ballybrown, so they will be a difficult chance for Ballybrown this weekend, and I'll get your prediction for that in a while. The other game then obviously was KP and Blackrock, which we were both at on Saturday afternoon, and these teams met in the Premier Intermediate final in 2019, and KP were favoured at the time. They finished level in the first day, and the replay was won by Blackrock, and Blackrock have stayed up in the senior ranks for the 3 years. They're obviously back down to Premier Intermediate for next year, but the growth in Kildimo-Pallaskenry in that time, and you can't talk about the game without talking about Kyle Hayes, which 10 points from play, which I've never seen before. But all over the field, Matt, they were just pure dominant.
Well, I make a general point about Kildimo-Pallaskenry. Like, the trajectory is upwards, and it's steadily upwards. Like, if you go back as far as 2017 when they won the Intermediate Championship, beaten semi-finalists in the Premier the following year, beaten finalists in the Premier the following year, champions the following year, first year back up senior last year, consolidated, now on the threshold of definitely making it to the quarterfinals, and probably, and the balance of probability, making it to Section A for next year. It's just simply phenomenal, Jack. And I was just talking with one or two of the Kildimo players immediately after the game last Saturday, and I was just making the point to them that the Kildimo-Pallaskenry team this year, Jack, is a couple of notches better than the Kildimo-Pallaskenry team that were taking baby steps and tentatively finding their way in senior hurling last year. They have adapted. The consolidation period is over. They're now driving on, and certainly, I think that Kildimo-Pallaskenry will be. They if they're to make it to the quarterfinals, and I think it'll be a massive surprise, and we'll have to have a seismic set of results at the weekend to prevent them from doing so. They're going to make life difficult for whoever they play.
Yeah, definitely.
They're a very, very decent side, and of course, then there is that special one, the great one, Kyle Hayes.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to talk about his 10 points now, or do you want to wait a while? Because I've never seen a player score 10 from play.
I'll wait a while to another segment in the program, because as I've given you the heads up, I'll be talking about it later. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously John Chalk again with another goal back-to-back weeks. He also saved a penalty as well. I think did I see it was his 26th year with KP, and we were talking to him afterwards, and obviously he's seen KP going from very lower levels now on the brink of Senior A, and for whichever teams come out of that second tier, we'll say Group 2, whoever gets doing in Kilmallock will be really, you'd imagine it's a very difficult task. But for the fourth team, the team that won't be coming in with a huge bank of form behind them, there's a huge chance to, I suppose, upset the odds in a way. What you were talking about there about potential for upsets. The thing with Kildimo-Pallaskenry is they're playing Gary Spillane. So Gary Spillane know if they can win by enough, that they can turn the odds in their favour and turn it against KP. But it is a tall order. Those games, South Liberty's Ballybrown, they're all on Saturday at 5 o'clock. South Liberty's Ballybrown in Fedamore, Blackrock versus Mungret St. Paul's in Ballygran, and Garrisland versus Glen Palace Kinnery in Carrick-on-Laois. Brilliant games to look forward to. We'll talk more when we get to predictions, but quickly on to the Premier Intermediate Hurling Championship. And we had a string of results over the weekend that have changed the table once more. And Cappamore beat Knockany to move on to 4 points. Effin beat Glenroe 125 to 215, which means that Newcastle West win over Bruff and Munlean's draw with Drumnaclacha means there's a 3-way tie now at the top. Glenroe on 7, Munlean on 7, and so are Newcastle. Then you have Effin on 6, Bruff on 5, Cappamore on 4, Drumnaclacha on 3, and Knockany at the bottom on 1 point. And just looking at the fixtures this weekend, Knockany versus Munlean, Bruff versus Glenroe, Drumnaclacha versus Newcastle West, and Effin versus Cappamore. And, we won't dwell on it too much, but like one set of results in that championship can twist it completely. There's still a couple of games to play in it. There's chances for teams. They have 5 played. They'll play 7 in total. So we're into the penultimate weekend. But we mentioned Cappamore a while back, Matt, when they were pointless. They can actually go into the top 4 this weekend if they beat Effin and results other way, go their way, because they'll go ahead of them on head-to-head. So we might just start there, that Cappamore are slowly rising.
Yeah, well, at one point there, Jack, we made the point that it was a surprise to see Glenroe at the top, and it was a much bigger surprise to see, in my view, Cappamore at the bottom, because apart from there being runners-up last year, they have a crop of young players coming through. They won an under-21 championship last year, and a lot of those players are coming through now, and I think it was only a matter of time as to when their campaign would take off. But by God, they left it late. They suffered 3 defeats on the bounce at the start of the campaign to Monaleen, to Newcastle West, and to Glenroe. But they've bounced back now with wins over Drumnaclacha and Knockany. But I suppose that comes with a little bit of a health warning, Jack. Their wins have been over the bottom 2. But it will be very, very interesting to see how they get on at the weekend against Effin. I think Effin are going to provide Cappamore with the biggest challenge they've got now since they turned the corner. And I saw Effin at the weekend, and they beat Glenroe, and I was hugely impressed with Effin. I was very, very unimpressed when I saw them in the first round against Bruff. They picked up their season since, and now they're on the threshold of if they beat Cappamore at the weekend, they'll move to 8 points, and will be pretty sure, Jack, of making it to the semi-finals. The Cappamore renaissance or revival may ground to a halt at the weekend, I think. Effin were 3 points down to Glenroe early in the second half last Sunday evening. They had a man sent off. It was then they really started to play, and we saw them at their very, very best. And I would reckon it was probably the best 25 minutes that they have played this year. Played really, really, really well. And of course they have that excellent finisher, of course, in Patrick O'Donovan, who in the we've been talking at length about this guy on this medium, and he's given us plenty to talk about. Like he plays 2 games in 3 days. He gets 23 points, Jack, 23 scores. The intermediate game against Glenroe, and then he turns out and on Tuesday evening in the under 19A final. He gets 11 points for Coshley Gales in their win over Garrisplan. And he was solely responsible as well, apart from that, for the goal, as he was the creator and of the goal. But I'm getting back to Effin, and I was digressing there a small bit. You know, they've young players coming through, and they have a real good, strong spine to their team. Anybody that has Nicky Quaid in their team, Nicky Quaid at centre back, and you have Fergal O'Connor, who was absolutely outstanding on Sunday evening, I thought, Jack. And you flagged it earlier on this year about Fergal O'Connor and the type of performances he was turning on for Limerick at under 20 level, which at fullback, which were excellent. And he's playing midfield for Effin, and he's outstanding there. You have Jack Quaid at centre forward, and of course Patrick O'Donovan in the full forward line, and a very, very exciting young player that I've seen coming through for Effin. Played very well against Glenroe. Now a very, very young player is Ewan Dillon. That's a name to look out for, Ewan Dillon, and he was outstanding in the under 19 final as well, and he got a point for the ages, Jack, right at the very end when Garrisplan had reduced the margin to 2 points, and he just gave him that cushion of 3 points, go actually down the whole gun into injury time. It was a fantastic point, but yeah, I have a hunch that Cappamore Revival may grind to a halt when they face Effin at the weekend.
Yeah, I suppose conversely then, Munleen versus Knockany and Drummond Aclacca versus Newcastle West. I suppose Munleen, Newcastle West will be looking at a huge chance that they could put one foot in the knockout stages against the bottom two. And then conversely then for Drummond Aclacca and Knockany, you know, they need points valuably to kind of get out of that relegation trouble. Obviously, Knockany are on a point. Drummond Aclacca have 3 by virtue of their draw at the weekend. But you'd fancy Munleen, Newcastle West, and that will bring them to 9 points. And with the teams playing against their below, that should be enough for them.
Well, it would be enough for them. It's an opportunity both for Munleen and Newcastle West to seal the deal, as it were. And then we come to the Bruff Glenroe game, which will be very, very interesting. A win for Bruff will bring him level with Glenroe on 7 points, and back-to-back defeats could leave Glenroe hanging. Now they have Drummond Aclacca in the final round, and so it's going to be very, very interesting. Now a couple of places may be decided at the weekend, but I think that as usual will go down to the wire on this one. It'll go down to the very last day at both top and bottom. Because of the relegation situation, we're not keen to dig out a result and Drummond Aclacca lose both games, then we're into a playoff situation. So nothing is cut and dry yet.
No, there's never anything easy with the Premier Intermediate Championship in terms of calculations and things. There could be a scenario that you have 5 teams on 7 points heading in to the final round, which that would I'd make it very, very interesting. Then you'd have one more on 5 behind that. But again, it's another, I suppose, exciting weekend of Premier Intermediate hurling action. Obviously, intermediate hurling as well. You have in Group 1, and we'll only go through these games, Matt, because we don't have much time to be talking about every grade. But as we said, once we get into the knockout rounds, we'll give every championship its ample time. In Group 1, Fiona versus Croom, Caroline versus Marubor, and the Piershig versus Brewery. The Piershig are already through. I saw them last Thursday evening against Croom. Very, very impressive. Between the senior and intermediate team, they've played 8 games, won 8 times, which is a lot for the club. And looking at the table now, Brewery are on 6 points, Fiona on 4, Croom on 3, Marubor on 2, and Caroline on 1. So that's a very interesting tie there, Caroline versus Marubor, heading into the final round. If Caroline don't pick up a win, they'll be into that relegation final in their first year back in the grade. And you want to pop in there, Matt, do with something?
I was just going to say how tight is at the top. Na Piarsaigh are playing Brewery, and of course, were Brewery to win it, it's Brewery will go through to the semi-final and the head-to-head.
Yeah, it's
Because I've seen Brewery this year, and I have to say, Jack, I was very, very impressed with them. Now, the only game they lost was to Fiohanna, and they're a pretty. And they were beaten in the semi-final last year. They're a pretty competent outfit, and they have a nice mixture of experienced players and young players coming through, and they have a chap by the name of Sam Cranley, who is in absolute form of his life, and if you've somebody that's going to get you scores. The day I saw him, he scored from play, he scored from frees, he scored from a 65, and he scored from a line ball. So that's the full end. Yeah, but of all the games that were played last weekend, Jack, the one result that stuck out a mile for me was Maru Boher's win over Fiohanna. I thought on form it was a banker for Fiohanna. And not just the win, but the manner of the win. Was it 221 to 17, Jack? Have you up on the graphic?
Yeah, 221 to 17.
This is a Maru Boher team that couldn't buy a win in the first 3 rounds, and looked as if as if they were cascading back into another relegation playoff. You recall they were relegated from Premier Intermediate last year, and when we were talking at the outset of the year, we thought they were fancied to make a quick return, but it didn't happen. But I saw them earlier on in the year, and I wasn't awfully disappointed with them. I thought they were okay, but they seem to regress in the games after that. But they bounced back and they beat Fiohanna, and I think that sets them up nicely for the final round against Caroline at the weekend. Now, Fiohanna and Croom is a straight knockout game. No, that's because Fiohanna win or lose. Sorry, win or draw, they're through. Croom win, it's Croom or through, and Fiohanna are gone.
Yeah, it's as simple as that for those teams. Obviously, the top one goes through to semi-final, and second and third go through to the quarterfinals. I suppose similar to the football setups. And then in Group 2, Matt, Crockilfinney, last year's finalists, met at 4 in a row. They're straight into a semi-final on the opposite side of Na Piarsaigh, and the other games in that group: Pallasgreen versus Hospital Herberstown, Kilmallock versus Granaballangary, and Crockilfinney play Knocknaderry. The state of that championship is Granaballangary are in second place on 6 points. Then you've Knocknaderry on 4, and then you've a 3-way tie between Pallasgreen, Hospital Herberstown, and Kilmallock, all on 2 points. I suppose for Knocknaderry, a win will see them try and croak at the least. The same for Ballingarry. But if you were to call that,
Ballingarry are on 6 there, Jack, so they go through.
Yeah.
Now, here's an...
You're after breaking up with us there now. You're coming in with an interesting point. I'll wait for you to come back there. But, yeah, just...
Here's... I think the Gremlins of Ballysteen came in there for a few moments, did they?
Yeah, they did. You were just about to make an interesting point, but you were rudely cut off.
I was. The Gremlins rudely interrupted me. Very, very interesting point here. Now, Knocknaderry play Crockilfinney. Were they to lose, you could have a situation whereby Palace are playing Hospital Herberstown. If Palace win, they have the head-to-head on Knocknaderry. If Hospital Herberstown win, Knocknaderry have the head-to-head on them. And then throw into the mix where Kilmallock can beat Granaballangary. We could have a situation where the third place would be decided on scoring difference.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for these championships and how they're falling. Again, credit to the organisers that there's so much riding on these final round games. Obviously, then in the junior, we have we have 12 games, and you can see all those fixtures on the website, on Sport Limerick website. There's a couple of teams that are already through. Kaleedy in Group 2 are guaranteed to go through, and St. Kieran's and Patrickswell in Group 3 and Group 4, they're on 100% record, so they're guaranteed to go through. But there's 5 more spaces up for grabs and 2 more relegation places. But we won't get into that, Matt, because we still have a nice bit to go yet in the podcast. Quickly on the ladies' football, we had the quarterfinals in both the senior and intermediate championships over the weekend. We had Drum Broadford, who are the reigning intermediate champions, beat Fiona Castleman by a point, 3-7 to 2-9. That means they'll play St. Ailbe's in next Wednesday's semi-final. And Ballylanders beat the Old Mill 110 to 6 points in a repeat of last year's semi-final. And that sets up a rematch of last year's final when they play Monagea next Wednesday. And then go into the intermediate championships. Ula beat Adair 110 to 18. And Knockany beat Father Casey's, which means Knockany versus Mulboher and Ula versus Mungret St. Paul's in those semi-finals. Are down. The intermediate ones are down for 25th and 26th of September. But the semi-finals for the senior are next Wednesday, Matt. We will be recording before then. But Monagea versus Ballylanders, obviously a repeat of last year's final. And St. Ailbe's versus Drum Broadford, who are in their first year back in the grade. You know, it's interesting.
Yeah, they're 2 very interesting semi-finals, and it has been a phenomenal performance by Drum Broadford, coming up from intermediate. Now they've knocked over some seasoned senior teams on the way that they're few more seasoned than Fiona Castleman, and who won the league earlier on, and who Drum Broadford got over at the weekend in the quarterfinal. And prior to that, they had wins over Old Mill and St. Bridget's. So, like, they're certainly deserving their place in the semi-final, and they come up against the Nailby side, of course, who haven't.
He's coming in there.
Since the last round of the group stages. So that'll be a very, very interesting game in Mount Collins on Wednesday night. Now, in the other quarterfinal, Ballylanders repeated their semi-final victory of last year over Old Mill, and they now face Monagea with a point to prove. And they face them in Knocklong on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. And you will recall in last year's final where Ballylanders, it was very, very close, but like they did suffer during the game in that they played 40 minutes with 14 players, as at one stage they had 2 players off the field in the sin bin. They seemed to be using a sin bin relay, and of course they're boosted now by the return of, as I said in the previous cast, of Andrea Sullivan and Claudia McGrath, which will be a big asset to him. And so that will be a very, very interesting game. So 2 very interesting semi-finals to look forward to.
Yeah, and we'll be looking forward to those in more detail next Wednesday's podcast. Also this weekend, we have the camogie, the final round of the Senior Camogie Championship. In Group 1, you have Kaleedy versus Crocora in a straight shootout for that second semi-final place. And a hand play Cappamore, a hand looking for 3 on the bounce. Cappamore will finish bottom of the table, regardless of the results, just with head-to-head and things. And then in Group 2, Mapirshig versus Newcastle West, who are already through, and then Bruff versus Granaballingary. Granaballingary obviously have a game 1, but if Bruff win and Mapirshig lose, Bruff will go through by they'll go ahead of them in points because they obviously drew with Mapirshig in the first round. You know, you have a hand and you have Newcastle West are home and host. From the other 5 teams, who will be the 2 to join them?
Yeah, I suppose you'd have to fancy Kaleedy anyway, as being one of the teams, and that'll be fascinating because it'll set up a repeat of the county final in the semi-final, because it'll be Newcastle West against Kaleedy, so that'll be very, very interesting should it transpire. But of course they they have to beat Cricora first to make sure. Now it's been a disappointing year before we get away from Group 1 for Capamore. Like they've suffered defeats and suffered heavy defeats, but they can't qualify for the A. They will have to settle for the B semi-finals, and like they will be hoping to regroup in through the B semi-finals. And in the other group is fascinating. Newcastle West, as you rightly said, are through, but were they to lose to the Piercing, it would mean that Ballingarry would have to win to stay afloat in the championship, and were Bruff and the Piercing to win, it would come down to scoring difference, because head to head can't come into play because they drew.
Yeah.
So that would be. I think it's slight advantage Bruff there, if I'm right. On scoring. Yeah. So it might very well come down that if the two win, that it may depend on the margins in which they win by. So I don't know. I said to you at the beginning of the year when we were talking about who might gate crash into the top four. The top four being Ahan, Killeedy, Newcastle West, and Ballingarry. I felt that Bruff had a right chance. Now they put up a very, very strong performance against Newcastle West in the opening round. I think you may have a surprise here on this one, and I think Bruff might just get over the line on this one. But it's a hazardous business, Jack. Forecasting against Ballingarry.
Yeah, especially.
They have achieved so much. They're so experienced, and they're able to dig so deep and dig out results. Listen, this may be the best chance that Bruff might get to get to a semi-final.
Yeah, it is intriguing. Again, final round, so much to play for. Again, credit to the organisers of competitions. I suppose before we get into our top 10 moments, Matt, we'll have our predictions. As always, looking back on last week's graphic, I got 6 right. I think it might be the first time that one of us got all of them right. The Piercing, Doon, Kilmallock, Ballybrown, KP, and Mungo St. Paul's. But you actually got more points because you correctly predicted Ballybrown to win by 3. It didn't look likely for large portions of the game, but there it is. You're getting closer every week. You're within 4 points now. But that's how it went last week. I suppose looking at potential goal scorers, we had plucked in the Piercing there. You said Dave Dempsey, I said Adrian Breen. Adrian Breen got the goals. Both wrong in the Doon Parswell game. It was Pat Ryan that got the goals. You said Dean Coleman. I said Adam English didn't play. We both went for Shane O'Brien in the Kilmallock game, but it was Oisin O'Reilly who got off the mark there. Mungo St. Paul, South Liberties, you said Paul O'Brien. I said Niall Mulcahy. It was Brian Amaro who got the goal. Ballybrown versus Carrisplan, I said Colin Coughlin. You said Callum Sheehan who got the second goal, but it was Dylan O'Shea who got the first. And then Lion Palace Henry versus Blackrock. You said Colin O'Keefe. I said Darren O'Connell. I think it was John Shaw got the opening goal there. So got one from 12 isn't great, but we'll try again this week.
Just Jackie, if I could digress backwards just for a second, you mentioned Shane O'Brien, and we've been speaking about Shane O'Brien for quite a while, and like I saw another aspect of his game last Friday evening in Carcandish. In the absence of Mike Houlihan, he's now taking the frees, and he stepped up to 9 frees, including a 65, and landed 8 of them.
Yeah, he's just he's a sort of player that you just don't really get surprised by these things anymore. It's more expectation with Shane O'Brien, which is in his first year. You kind of take these things for granted, but he won All Ireland.
Just phenomenal.
And I think, not to digress, I think we'll be talking about Shane later on in the podcast. But getting into our predictions for this weekend, Matt. Again, the 6 games, and we'll start with Na Piarsaigh versus Ahan. Obviously, Na Piarsaigh are home and host. Ahan will be, I suppose, between relegation and a quarter-final place. They obviously need a win to I suppose, get into the quarter-final. Can you see them picking it up, or?
I'm going for Na Piarsaigh by 6.
Na Piarsaigh by 6. I'm going to go for NAP by 5. Goal scorer Adrian Breen was on hand last week to get me going. But I'm going to go with Dave Dempsey this week.
But I'm going with Dave Dempsey as well.
Well, I'm going to change then. If you're sticking to Dave Dempsey, I'm going to go with Peter Casey. Even though I feel like some of those players.
Yeah, Dempsey is not going to disappoint 3 weeks in a row.
I think Na Piarsaigh might rest players this week just by virtue of being through already. But yeah, Patrickswell versus Adair.
I don't know that they will, for the simple reason that they will be conscious of the ramifications of the outcome for other clubs. In fairness,
No, but I don't think they do it out of like losing integrity. But they've so many good players that they can afford to rest players, and performance levels will stay the same. Like from what I've seen, that intermediate team, like obviously the lads weren't burned yet. They could easily play senior hurling. I don't mean to offend anyone in that regard. They just have so many good players. But Patrickswell versus Adair, and Adair win would be probably enough for them to go through. But
Patrickswell, I'm going by Patrickswell by 4.
P-Well by 4. I'm going to go by the Well by 3. I think that was the result last year. And Aaron Gillan, first goal scorer.
Could
obviously be Adair as well.
Willie Griffin.
You're gone for Willie Griffin from Adair. And then Doon versus Kilmallock in that straight shootout. Which team will get into the semi-final, Matt?
Kilmallock by 3.
Kilmallock by 3. I'm going to go Doon by 2 points to get revenge for, I suppose, last year's semi-final. And obviously Kilmallock going through the quarters last year didn't do them any harm, so I'm sure they won't really mind either way. But if you were to pick a first goal scorer?
I'd go Shane O'Reilly.
Shane O'Reilly, who's got he's got goals in every round, I think, or thereabouts. I'm going to go with Pat Ryan to get the first goal again. Into Group 2, KP and Gary Spillane. A win for KP will be
by 5.
KP by 5. Do you know what? I'm going to go for a draw in this one, which will be enough for KP. First goal scorer, we'll go Chalky again. See, does he make it 3 in a row?
Yeah, well, no, I'll go Darren O'Connell.
Darren O'Connell. Ballybrown versus South Liberties, Matt.
I'm going Ballybrown by 3.
Bally by 3, which will be enough for them to go up, or to go into the quarterfinal at the least. I'm going to stay with Ballybrown as well. Ballybrown plus 4. And I'm going to go with Aidan O'Connor for the first goal scorer.
Right.
Were you planning on Aidan O'Connor?
No, Ross Kenny.
Ross Kenny. And then Munger St. Paul's versus Black Rock, which, depending on the results, could be a dead rubber for both teams. Munger obviously safe and Black Rock relegated. I'm going to go with Munger to win this by 5.
I'll go by 6.
Munger by 6. And I'm going to go with Niall Mulcahy again. Pick him 3 weeks in a row. He'll surely, as you're plucking with Dahi Dempsey every week, I'm going to stay with Niall Mulcahy there.
I'll go Rory O'Shaughnessy.
Rory O'Shaughnessy for Black Rock. Those are the games in the senior championship, and I'll get you to give your opinions, I suppose, on the Premier Intermediate Championships before we head away today. So we spoke at length there about Effin and Glenrue. Which way do you see that going?
Well, it's Effin and Cappamore, and I'm
Sorry,
going for Effin.
Effin and Cappamore. Sorry, Effin and Cappamore.
Yeah. Rough and Glenroe, I'm going for a draw.
Oh, yeah, I suppose you had said that. I will go Effin and Cappamore. I'd be siding slightly with Cappamore just to keep that roll going. Rough and Glenroe. I'll say Glenroe just for you there. Drummond Atlaka, Newcastle West.
You're so good today, Jack.
I'm very good today.
You just made my day, Jack.
Drummond Atlaka, Newcastle.
Newcastle West.
Yeah, I'd fancy Newcastle as well. And Knockany, Monleen.
Monleen.
That would be, as we said, pretty enough for both teams to get through, really. You would imagine they would take them to a magical 9 points, which generally seems to be enough. But yeah, those are our predictions for this weekend's games. As always, it's only for a bit of fun. And in the final round as well, there's other things come into play because teams can go through and teams are already through and things like that. But before we finish, we have our top 10 moments from the last 4 years. It goes to the middle of November when I would say 200 episodes ago. It's just under 4 years. Obviously, a lot has happened since then. There's going to be some moments that miss out. Again, it's only for a bit of fun, but just to mark 200 episodes, because, not a lot of things get there. It's a long time. And fair play to you, Matt. You've been there since day one. I only came, I'd say, just well into 100 episodes. You would start.
I missed one, I think, Jack, or two. I'm not 100% sure, but I've been there from the start.
We had a stand-in fairness. John Keogh was in for you a few weeks ago on your well-deserved holiday. And to be fair, you had said that you'd do it, but I said, no, I'd like to give you your time off and to everyone that's contributed. And we'll get more guests on as the club championships come to an end. Don't worry about that. And we'll keep it going through the winter months. But yeah, we just said last week we'd do 10 moments from the last 4 years. Obviously, it's all encompassing Limerick GAA, Limerick LGFA, and the camogie as well. But just with the hurlers being so dominant in that time, they are going to take most of the plaudits, and I think that's fair enough to say. There's some moments that are going to miss out on each of our lists. I'm just looking at mine there now and try to shoehorn them in, but I suppose one for me that Kyle Hayes' goal in 21 Munster final doesn't make it because I wasn't there. If I was there, it definitely would have been in it. The 2020 Munster final, Adam English got 5 points in the day, but I suppose Liam Lynch, Paddy Donovan, Ethan Hurley, Shane O'Brien, these boys we're seeing now are playing, and it was nice to see them at underage level to show how good they were. But again, that doesn't make it for me. There'll be a lot of missed ones. Is there any off the top of your head, Matt, that just didn't make it, that you just couldn't slot in? Or
no, not really. I agree with you totally. The podcast has been running concurrent with what we spoke about earlier. An unprecedented spell of success for Limerick Hurlers, and when we're looking back on the special moments, I think, Jack, we can be forgiven for thinking, for selecting many of those moments, and there are so many of them, because if you were to go down to individual moments, individual bits of brilliance, you'd easily fill 100, but I went for sort of occasions and achievements, and as you'll see now when we will be, I will give the rationale behind why I felt that there were special moments and special achievements, but we have to be forgiven and we have to be understood, Jack, for it being dominated with the achievements of the Limerick hurling team.
Yeah, I think it's only fair just of how good they have been, and there are other things that make the list, but they just supplied us with so many memories. And All-Ireland final days are just so special, and so are Munster finals. And thank God the footballers are there this year as well, but the hurlers have completed 4 in a row in that regard. I'll get you to kick off, Matt. And again, these aren't in order. It's not a 1 to 10. It's just 10. So I'll let you start where you want to start.
One of the ones I have down here, Jack, is the second half of the Munster final in 2021, when Limerick looked down and out at half-time against Tipperary, and that special 20 minutes that they played that turned it right around by the second half water break, and particularly highlighted by the Kyle Hayes goal that particular day. That to me was a very, very special moment, or a special 35 moments, whatever way you like to look at it. But to me, that was very, very, very special.
Yeah, I suppose he completed the 3 in a row, which has become 4 in a row as well. But I think there was a lot there. It was the first time that there was, a decent crowd at a game in a while. I think it was at 7,000 on the day. You had the sunshine. It was a scorching day. And for, Kyle, I suppose, to have the energy with the whole team, as you said, it turned in the space of water break, even less than 20 minutes. They get 111 or something in that time, Matt. And I'm prefacing this with a moment that'll come down the line. But was it the best, I suppose, performance over a short period that you've ever seen, or was it usurped later in the year?
Well, it was. You might be second guessing me on that one, and I'll come to that later. But I'll tell you, it ranks up there with one of the really, really great performances, because Tipperary were so dominant in the first half, and particularly Jason Ford, like who do no wrong. Like he could literally hit the ball towards his own goal and to go over the Limerick bar, But that to me was very, very, very special, because the pessimist in me had thrown in the towel. You were down 10, 11, 12 points, and the way Tipperary were playing, I couldn't see it being turned around, but by God, it was.
Yeah, it definitely turned around. I suppose for my first one, I'm going to stick with the Tipperary in a Munster final, and I'm going to go for 2019. Again, a brilliant day in the Gaelic grounds. It was Limerick's first Munster final win in 6 years, which I suppose at the time wasn't that much of a drought, Matt. The way things have gone now, it's a huge drought. But again, the day that was it was on in the Gaelic grounds. Limerick had lost to Tipperary not too long ago. I think it was maybe a fortnight beforehand in Semple Stadium. It was Liam Sheedy's first year in charge. It seemed to all be behind Tip, and Limerick 226 to 214. Huge win in a Munster final. 12 points against Tipperary, like that doesn't come around very often. But again, Kyle got a goal on the day. The other goal, I'm struggling to think who got the other goal. You might help me out there if you can remember it. But Nicky Quaid, I remember, made a point blank save on Shane McCallanan, who had got a goal in the first half as well. It was Peter Casey got the other goal. Aaron Gillan flicked it across. But I think that made Limerick hold All-Ireland League and Munster Championships at the same time. It was kind of, we knew that Limerick were the dominant team in the country, but it really solidified it. And I could really say Limerick are the best team in the country, and for the first time in my life, even though they won All Ireland, Galway were still probably the team to beat early in 2019. You could say that Limerick are the best team in the country, and that game solidified it. And for me, right up there with all the performances you mentioned, Tip in 2021, Cork 2021, Kilkenny this year, Clare's, a lot of brilliant performances. But I think this was really the first really dominant championship win against a top tier team, and we've seen they haven't lost in Munster since in a knockout game. That's my first moment. We'll go on to your second there.
My second, and you have touched on it there a while ago, would be the first half of the 2021 All-Ireland final, when Mike scored 318, which would be enough to win most games, rather than get 318, Jack, in 35 minutes. Just simply incredible. But got 3 goals of real quality. And can we ever forget the performance of Cian Lynch and the build up to those goals? Absolutely, simply phenomenal. I never thought I would see a Limerick team reach such dizzy heights, and to choose All Ireland final day for it made it extra so special. Absolutely, and against Cork, even made it more special. And I I think that will rank up with probably the greatest All Ireland performance of all time.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that broke records for points scored in the first half, points scored overall, most points in a game, I think, between the two teams. I have a moment from that game, Grode Hegarty's goal after a minute and a half. It kind of encapsulated the game straight away. Limerick were right to the boil. Keane Lynch, to create that space, he did, a little flick. He's man the match, obviously, and Grode Hegarty firing to the net, the first of 2 goals. But it was kind of the eruption when Hegarty scored. It was the first time we had I said a decent crowd Munster final. We had 40,000 in Crow Park. It was the first time you were surrounded by a lot of people at a match in a long time. Over 18 months, just kind of it all came together. And when Grode scored that goal, the roar, even now, giving me goosebumps talking about it. And as you said there, what they achieved over the course of the half as a whole, really special times. And obviously, Grode Hegarty has made a point of showing up on All Ireland final day, and this is a picture from this year's final. But I think I'm plucking for his goal against Cork. It wasn't as good, don't get me wrong, but just special moments. I'll go back to you there for number 3.
Number 3, Jack. I've switched over to the big ball code, and Limerick winning promotion and being crowned Division 4 champions with a win in Markovich Park in Sligo. I thought was a phenomenal achievement for a couple of reasons. First of all, Markovich Park had been the graveyard of Limerick hopes for so many times prior to that, and above all, I think just to put the achievement in perspective, it was achieved when you think of where Limerick had come from. A couple of years earlier, Limerick had picked up 3 points in the league, Jack, from a draw with London and a win over Waterford. And it was a sense of where Limerick had come from and where Billy Lee and his management team had brought Limerick, and sort of brought him to the promised land, if you like, because certainly the expectations in Limerick football at that particular time were very, very modest. And they did win the McGrath Cup earlier in the year, but they confirmed that kind of form. They translated it into the league and won promotion to Division 3, which, to me, it was a giant step at the time, and the way it was achieved, I think I regard it as a special moment. And you're probably not surprised that I've said that, because I've said it a number of times in the podcast already. And of course, the rest is history. We know what has happened since, for the promotion to Division 2 for next year. But that would be one of the standout moments during the life of the podcast for me.
Yeah, and I'll go with the 2022 promotion. And you rightly say it like that. 2021, it didn't kickstart the journey, because I think the McGrath Cup might have, but I wasn't there, as I said, in Markovich Park. It was during the lockdown and all that. But I'm gone for this year's promotion, beating Fermanagh in the Gaelic rounds. And, again, a brilliant display by Billy Lee's men. And, Robbie Burke had saved it a week earlier with the win in Laois to bring it to the final day. And Limerick knew a win would be enough. And, a really composed performance, like the one in Markovich Park was, that they were very confident in their own ability, never got ahead of themselves with promotion on the line. And I think afterwards, to be able to go on to Gaelic Grounds Field, obviously the support for the footballers isn't as big as the hurlers, but it's a very tight-knit community. It's you so many people, and to be out in the field surrounded by the players and see them celebrating, and to see Billy get a second promotion in 3 years, it was a really nice moment for Limerick football, and one that we can start to have more. That's 2 in a number of years, and obviously a Munster final as well, which we'll get to, so I'm going to go for that second promotion. But, enjoyable in different ways. I think the Markovich Park one was, it would have kick-started, as I said. This one was kind of further affirmation that they're really going in the right direction. I'll move on to my next one, and from this year, I'm going to go with Declan Hannon's point in the 2022 Munster final against Clare. Ultimately didn't win the game, but Declan Hannon has been such an integral part of Limerick, captain 4 in a row. Not a week goes by we don't mention him, and he's just been, alongside John Kiley, the face of this revolution of Limerick hurling. He's just a supremely talented hurler, first and foremost, such an eloquent speaker, the leader of this team. But I think his talent kind of goes under the radar sometimes because of how good he is off the field as the Limerick captain. But that score, game in the melting pot, a surreal experience blow in like a cauldron in Semple Stadium against Clare. A throwback to the great Munster finals against Clare in the 90s, and Hannon to launch one over from 100 yards. We had to wait a bit longer for him to make his speech because of Tony Kelly's rocks to the other side, but I think it would be remiss to go without mentioning Declan Hannon. So for me, that's one of the best moments from the last 4 years, his score against Clare.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely fantastic, and I agree with your analysis of Declan Hannon, because he's such a good player, and he makes it all look so easy. And like we talk about the input of players into teams and what have you. Sadly, we won't realize. I think some people won't realize how actually good Declan Hannon is until Declan Hannon has hung up his boots.
Yeah,
he's until we go about replacing him, because he's a centre back for the ages. He's a captain for the ages. Absolutely fantastic. I couldn't agree more with you. But as you were more leaning towards individual moments, whilst I went more towards occasions, as you can see. But I just want to endorse everything that you said about Declan Hannon and More.
Yeah. I've a few that are individual and a few that are team, but I get your fourth one there.
Yeah, my fourth one is like in the 60s, Jack. We were on a diet of Limerick CBS reaching All Ireland Colleges finals and winning All Ireland Colleges finals, and it looked as if that was something that was a thing of the past for Limerick until this year. After a few close, flirtations with making the breakthrough, Ardscoil Reach with a fine team, despite losing the Harty Cup final to St. Joseph's from Tulla, regrouped and won the All Ireland. And for me, it was a very, very special occasion, because it was a team that will have, the 66 team of CBS, fed into the All Ireland success of 1973. And like some excellent players, and you mentioned Shane O'Brien there earlier, and you've Cian Scully, and we spoke earlier about Mikey Gavin. They were all part of that team, and JJ Carey, I think he made his Napier debut at the weekend. So to me, it was a special moment that 56 years on from the previous success, that the Croke Cup was returning to Limerick. And to me, it has been one of the highlights of the last 4 years.
Yeah, no doubt. We've mentioned, as you said, so many of those boys in the podcast, even alone today, that they're the future of Limerick hurling, and it's great to see a Limerick college, do so well. And Ardscoil Reach, to be fair, have been the backbone of that Limerick team. Was it 11 from Ardscoil Reach were on the 2018 team? And there's a huge influence coming through. So credit to them. I'll get you to go on to your fifth one there while you're at it.
My fifth one is very, very hard to pin down, but I will give you the rationale behind it. When I was in the Limerick dressing room in Croke Park in 2018, Jack, which predated the podcast, I got a message on my phone that Martina McMahon had won the World Championship. had
You might start that again there, because you blanked out there. You got a message from your phone during the All Ireland or after the All Ireland.
Yeah, just 1 second now, Jack.
changing something here, but I think I know where you're going with this. On you go there. You were in the dressing room.
Yeah, I was in the Limerick dressing room in Croke Park, and I got a message on my phone that Martina McMahon had won the All Ireland. Now I know that predates the podcast, but what Martina McMahon has achieved since, I think, Jack, you know, to me is special. And as late as a week ago, when she won the All Ireland softball singles and became just the third person to win it 5 times. You know, she has broken so many barriers in handball over the years. It's just simply incredible. She's one of Limerick's greatest ever sports people, Jack. And the sad thing about it is that her career and her career at the top is running concurrent with the achievements of the Limerick senior hurling team, and it's sort of getting lost in it. But I think it's only right that we should note what the achievements of Martina McMahon have been over the 4 years, and to me they are special, and none more special than when she joined that elite club last couple of weeks ago, of just becoming the third woman to win 5 in a row, 5 softball singles, All Ireland softball singles, with along with Katrina Casey and Bernie Hennessy of Limerick. And you know, we going forward, we would certainly hope that come 12 months' time, Martina McMahon will be the only one in 6. And she's quite capable of, but she's been dogged by injury, she's been dogged by the pandemic, but you know, what she has achieved in handball is absolutely phenomenal. And to me, Jack, that is one of the highlights of our period doing the podcast.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. She's been, you know, a real role model for Limerick, you know, as the best handball player in the country. You know, it's hard. Individual sports are very, very difficult because you've no one to fall back on if it's not your day, but she's just high consistency, like the Limerick hurlers, to be fair to her. For my 5th one, and I actually didn't have it in my list that I told you before we went on, I had Aaron Gillan's goal against Waterford in 2019 league final, but I've actually switched it out for the 2020 All-Ireland final. You know, I suppose it was a strange day for us all behind closed doors in Croke Park. I wasn't there myself, I wasn't working, so I wasn't one of the privileged few that got in there with theirs, Seamus Flanagan celebrating. But it's really surreal thinking back that, you know, I watched Limerick in All-Ireland final in the lock, you know, with a group of my friends with our Limerick jerseys on. You know, it's unforgettable in a way. Obviously, you wouldn't ever like to do it again, but I think it's, you know, it's important to remember that period we went through, that the Limerick hurlers were a shining beacon in that time, and it was, you know, December, but it was a brilliant day all the same to celebrate those lads, and I think it was special for them to be able to celebrate themselves. So I think it's important maybe to get that in there. So that's my 5th one that I've squeezed in there, the 2020 All Ireland final. And I suppose moving on from that, then completely contrasting, my 6th one is the pre-match parade for this year's All Ireland final 2022. I just thought the noise levels was, I don't know, I've never experienced noise like it. Even 2018, you know, when you're the full house in Limerick's first All Ireland in 11 years, this year's parade was just, I thought the ears are going to blow off me. I couldn't even speak to the people beside me, like just saying how loud it was. It was just incredible. Again, goosebumps talking about it now. I think obviously the semi-final had a huge crowd, maybe 50,000, and the previous All Ireland had 40, and you know, the Munster final had a fair crowd as well. But this was, you know, full house, All Ireland final day. Everyone just simply focused on the hurling. There was no outside interference for the first time in a few years. And as the team walked around, like if I had a roof, you know, it's cliche to say, it would have come off. So yeah, the parade for this year's All Ireland final is definitely up there for me.
Yeah, I agree with you, and you know, it was special to be part of it, but you know, at that stage you're so tense with the game coming up, and you're just wondering what's going to transpire. and let's you be saying to yourself, let's hope this is the parade to glory, you know. But Jack, you are right. Absolutely, it was an extra special moment.
Yeah, it's just I'll never ever forget that moment as long as I live, and hopefully we'll have more of the same next year. But we won't get too greedy. Your next one?
My next one is I'm on the same team and I'm on the same day as you. In in um, in 2022, what was very special to me was, of course, the All Ireland final. But in particular, um, winning the All Ireland final and beating Kilkenny, but more so, Jack, Limerick winning 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Like we'd never won back-to-back All Ireland titles until we won it in 2021. So, like, it was the first opportunity that we got to win 3 in a row. By God, did we grasp it with both hands. And to beat Kilkenny was very special, because as much as Limerick had achieved before this year's All Ireland final, there was a narrative going around when talking about great teams and good teams and great All Ireland winners, that they'd never beaten Kilkenny. That ghost has now been laid, and that has been put to bed. Limerick have won 3 in a row and beaten Kilkenny to do so. To me, very special moment.
Yeah, and they've beaten everyone as well. You know, Kilkenny were that last team, as you said, to beat. They've beat everyone. I don't like the overriding impression I got from this year's All-Ireland final is they're not done. You know, as if it like they will try as hard as they've tried over the last 4 years to keep this thing going. Over the last 5 years, I suppose 6 really, consider John's first year. And the sky is the limit for this team. They're there already, but they plan on staying there. Long may it last, as I said. But yeah, really special, especially because 19 was so low after losing to Kilkenny that we had waited so long to play them again. And if you'd lost again, those doubters or naysayers would have had loads more fuel to the fire. But no, this Limerick team refused to stay down and got the win and made it 3 in a row. Just so many things from that game, as you said. We're going to move on to football for my next two. And I'll start with beating Clare on penalties in Ennis earlier this year. I know I said I haven't gone for ones that I wasn't at, but I was in hospital the day before, so I wasn't going to make it just with my back. But listened to on the radio, and thank God one of the lads FaceTime me for the penalties. But Clare had been such a bogey team for Limerick, and there was a clear path this year to a Munster final, and we'll get to that. But Clare had been a bogey team, and Clare went on to reach a quarter final this year, it has to be said. But, the drama, just listening to on the radio made it that bit more special than ringing the lads, as I said. And just to get over the line, they looked dead and buried till Robbie Burke came on and got that free to equalise, and then Clare did the same to send it to extra time. And I suppose losing to Tip in 2020, and obviously this point against Clare Cork the previous year, to beat Clare after losing 5 in a row, I think, against Clare over the last decade, I thought that was really special. So that's my 7th.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. It was I didn't include it in mine, but to me it was a very special moment. I suppose being from Limerick, to beat Clare in anything is special. But to beat them in the football championship down in their own backyard, and in the circumstances in which they were beaten, it was like it showed the type of resilience that Billy Lee had inculcated into his team, and it showed that winning promotion as well was no fluke, that they were able to translate it into the championship and dug out what to me was a really landmark victory.
Yeah, and I suppose I'll go on to my number 8 because it's on the same team, but I thought I had to include as well, beating Tipperary the following day in the Munster Championship quarter-final. Again, very similar to what I said about the Fermanagh game, just have that group of people on the field in Thurles after the game. Obviously, lads from Ballysteen on the team, makes a huge difference. But there was a lot of us went down to see the game, maybe 15 or 20 of us, and just to finally get over that line and get back to the Munster final. The Munster final 2010 was a brilliant day for me. Football was way at the time in the county, and you know, they always say it when you're younger. What, I was 14, that I was like, you know, I'll get loads of these Munster final days, and you realise as you get older that they're, you know, very special and few and far between. So to realise there and then we're going back to Munster final, who cares if it's Kerry, you know, great sense of community on the field in Thurles after the game. So I'm going to put that in as my 8th moment. But real special days for the Limerick footballers this year. I know I have 3 from this year in there, but it's, you know, it's 3 reflecting on a grander scheme of things since Billy went in, you know, and hopefully can continue with the new manager, whoever that may be. But yeah, I'm going to go with beating Clare at number 7 and beating Tip at number 8. If you want to give me 2 back to back there.
Yeah, it was absolutely excellent. My next one was 2021, and 15 Limerick players being nominated for All-Stars.
And there's a lot now when you were talking about All-Stars.
Yeah, well, yeah, it does, Jack. And we're getting 12 All-Stars now, which was a record. It was very special, but of course it was tempered with disappointment. We didn't get 15 because, like the 3 that were left out, there was absolutely no justification for leaving them out. But it is what it is. But to me, it was very, very special. You know, it was a record haul of All-Stars, but it you know, for me, it was recognition from on high, as it were, of what Limerick had achieved, and it gave you a sense of the absolute strength and of this Limerick team and Limerick squad, and when the 12 were announced, was you know my views on those that were left out. It was very, very special that it is something that will never be emulated, will never be surpassed, that a county would get 12 All-Stars.
And just on that point, because I know I mentioned Declan Hannon and Growth Hegarty and stuff, but Cian Lynch was obviously named Hurler of the Year at the end of that year, 2021. Like, you know, he's been a real backbone of Limerick. He was obviously there in 2013 when Limerick won that Munster final, their first in over nearly 30 years. I think it was 28 years, I think. Obviously with Arts Reach as well, with the 21s going on to win the Hurler here in 2018. Like, you know, Cian Lynch has been a real figurehead in this whole Limerick revival, and best luck again with his injury. But how would you compare his 2021 to any of the great years that we've ever seen, the likes of Brian Whelan and Henry Shefflin and Tommy Walsh and these boys? Like, for me, it's the best year of hurling I've ever seen from anyone. You know, he was just incredible all year.
Absolutely. I haven't a doubt on that, not even the slightest doubt, Jack. You know what my views on Cian Lynch are. Yeah. You know, and you know where I rate him. In the galaxy of hurling stars, absolutely number 1. And I've been saying that, to me, Cian Lynch must be the greatest hurler that ever played the game, and I stand over that. And for that reason, you know, what he achieves does not surprise me, because, you know, he's just very, very special. We should enjoy him, you know. And you know, to think that we won an All Ireland without him, you know, gives you a sense of how strong the Limerick squad is. And yeah, look, I have said my bit on that, and my views are well known. And so, you know something, Jack, I sometimes get criticised for it, but I'll take it on the chin. Very, very seldom now. There's an awful lot. There's an overwhelming majority agree with me, but you know, you come down to the people that disagree with everything. You're
not going to get, you know, and look, the thing with Cian is
we're into that territory now, you know.
Cian has a lot of years to, I suppose, further solidify his status as not only one of the greats, but potentially the greatest. But going on to your 8th one.
But Jack, when you're talking about Cian Lynch, we won't go away from him for a minute. You know, he's a role model in so many ways. He's a role model in so many ways. The way the way he carries himself, what he does, around the county. He's just a phenomenal young man, as well as being a phenomenal hurler.
Yeah, he's got it all going for him, in fairness, and yeah, he's second to none on the field. Your eighth moment there, Matt?
I'm going. In my eighth moment has been very, very recently, Jack. I honestly thought, and you were there, Jack, it was an absolute privilege to be in Ballygran last Saturday and to see Kyle Hayes scoring 10 points from play. I think it was an absolutely, it's been so much spoken about during the week and since, and people sort of in disbelief. Could a hurler actually do it over 60 minutes? But by God, we witnessed it. And they were all from play. They were all of varying quality, of high quality scores, some absolutely phenomenal scores. And to me, it was a privilege to be there. And I know it's only 7 days ago, or less than 7 days ago, 5 days ago, 6 days ago. It was one of the highlights of the last 4 years to me, Jack. To see a player, to do what he did last weekend, I think it was just magnificent.
Yeah, we were watching, and after a while, you just you start to laugh because there's no words for what Kyle is doing after a while. And you might refer to him, like I sometimes refer to him, as a monster. I mean that the nicest possible way. But I mean, if he wants to, he will destroy any defense in Limerick. He's just that good, and he looked to be in the groove very early on. They were kind of marking him 3-on-1 against Blackrock, but when your one is Kyle Hayes, more often than not, you're gonna get the ball, and he's just flawless to play. And he had a brilliant shot and goal saved as well. Like, it could have been 110 from play, but I've never seen someone getting double digits from play. And Kyle, I still think he's more of a defender, which is kind of the scary thing about it all. But yeah, it was one for the ages, Matt. One you'll say, I was there when he got those 10 points. Flawless performance.
Those around me, I had to check with them a couple of times. Was what was unfolding in front of us for real? It was so special, Jack. You'll be a long time around this game now. I'm on the exit lounge, but the departures lounge, whatever you like to call it. But I'll tell you, I don't think you'll ever see that feat emulated. It was just the work and the doing of a very, very special player. It was magnificent now to watch.
Yeah, it was brilliant,
it made my weekend. Absolutely, yeah. When I saw people doing things on social media about it and all that sort of thing, in my own mind, it was a privilege to be there and to see this with our own eyes and see it unfold in front of us. As hard and all as to us to believe, but an incredible achievement.
Yeah, we have been blessed even over the last 12 months with some individual performances. I won't get into all of them, but even Paddy Donovan last year, intermediate, semi-final and final, scored all around him. Oisin O'Reilly last year got 7 from play, and I think he got a goal in the final. I think he got 6 the following week. Graham Mulcahy got 7 points in the final last year. We've seen great feats of scoring, but Kyle's 10, perfect 10 as I like to call it. But my 9th moment stays with Lion Palace Kennery and their game with Mungret St. Paul's in August of 2020. Back in Clarina, like ever outside of the game, which was brilliant. It was such a spectacle, and I think it was right off again. They got the late winner for Mungret St. Paul's, but to be back at a game after, I suppose, in February, it kind of ground to a halt, or maybe March, but we'd spent all summer, we were locked in our rooms in our homes for weeks and weeks, and we weren't able to see our friends for that long, and we weren't able to go to matches, something we'd become so accustomed to. And to finally arrive back in Clarina, there might have been 200, 300 people, because there was a limit on people. I was one of the lucky few to get in there. To get back to the club action was really special. A brilliant games, 2 teams that I'd know well. I have a lot of friends in both teams, so it was nice to see that as well. But to get back to the games for me, and it happened to be Lion Palace Kennery versus Mungret St. Paul's, was a special moment.
Yeah, I agree. That I wasn't at the game now, but it's an by all accounts, an absolutely memorable game, and you know, it really befitted people being back at games again. So it was, but we've spoken about Kildima Palestinian and their progression, and certainly they have been involved, and they have been quite involved in this podcast today for different reasons, and rightly so. But that was a very, very special day, Jack.
Yeah, and I suppose, I don't know if you wanted to leave it till number 10, but I know it was a special day for you in this list somewhere. Are you leaving it for 10, are you?
I'm not. I'm giving it number 9 now because it was a special. Forgive me now for being parochial, and forgive me for being a bit personal, but and I shed a tear when the final whistle was blown by Mike Sexton in Kilmallock in 2019 when Glenroe had won the county intermediate championship. Because for Glenroe, in the lead up to winning the county championship that year, they had been involved in semi-finals for a number of years and couldn't get over the hump. And then when they got over the hump of semi-final in 2017, they were beaten by Kildimo Pallaskenry. And at last, they had got their hands on it. But Jack, it was a competition that absolutely frustrated Glenroe. It was their 6th appearance in a final. They had lost in 75, 76, 77, 2005, 2017, and here at last they had got over the line in it. And I was really very involved at one stage in 70, 75, 76 and 77. I was chairman of the club during those years. And we'd been so close in those three years to Mungret and to Fedamore and to Drummond-at-Laca, and just couldn't get over the line. The same against Ballingarry in 2005, much the same against Kildimo Pallaskenry in 2017. But at last that day had come, and I was moved to tears, and I don't normally shed tears of victory, but it was a special moment for me during the last 4 years, Jack.
Yeah, well, I tell you, if Palestine had won a county, it would definitely be on this list. And even though we're not ranking them 1 to 10, it would have been number 1. I think people would have known that. But yeah, look, it was great to see for you, for Glenroe, and they've been thereabouts for, as you said, so long. So to eventually get over the line, like, everyone loves a story like that a team just keep going and eventually get over the line. You talk about crying tears of joy after a game, and for me, my final moment was when Dreams played at the end of this year's All-Ireland final, and I think Dreams has become synonymous with this Limerick team. And we had Declan Hannon and Cian Lynch go up and lift the Lee McCarthy for the 3rd year in a row, and that looking at that never ever gets old. But for me in 2018, it was so emotional, just to see like the outpouring of fans, and in 2022 just Dreams kind of brings it all together and it brings it full circle. So for me, when that played, there was more tears of joy, even though it's probably 20 minutes after the final whistle. The players were coming towards the hill, and that's where I watched the game. And just to hear Dolores O'Riordan song play, just a really beautiful moment. And for me, that caps off the 10 moments. And for your finale,
really dreams and the fulfillment of dreams that we thought would never be fulfilled. My final moment, I don't know how I'll put it, Jack. It's not a moment. It's a very, very long moment. But like these have been very, very special times for Limerick. 4 All-Irelands in 5 years, 2 National Leagues, 4 Munster titles in a row, 1 or 2 Munster Senior Cups, and the mastermind behind it all, Jack, the man that has put it all together, he's put the backroom team together. They in turn with him have put the squad together, and they've given us endless joy. I just couldn't pick out any particular moment, but I still couldn't pick out, a highlight of the 4 years that we've been doing the podcast. If I didn't select John Kiley, who has been absolutely incredible. I think his record speaks for himself. What he has achieved for Limerick. The way himself, his management team, and his squad of players have lifted the morale of this county. How he carries himself as a man. What an ambassador for the game of hurling, Jack. What an ambassador for our wonderful county of Limerick, John Kiley.
Yeah, as a figurehead of the Limerick hurling team and Limerick hurling in the county, there's no one better. And as I said, an ambassador, there's no one else you'd rather have. And, we've been so lucky with the managers we've had in place. And John Kiley is the best at what he does in the country. I don't think there's any doubt in that. And he's brought in the best background team, and he's the best players, and he's trained a lot of them underage. He didn't just inherit them in 2017. He had them in 15, winning a first All-Ireland for the county in 13 years, and what he's done since then, as you said, speaks for itself. And I think
he's officially the second most successful manager in the history of the game, behind Brian Cody. He's a bit to go to catch up with Brian Cody in terms of success. In terms of All Ireland, but he is the top manager of the modern era because he has won. The game has evolved over the years and evolved at a greater pace in the last couple of years. And John Kiley has been one of the catalysts for the evolution of the game, of bringing the game to a new level. And he's certainly the most successful manager of the generation.
Yeah, I think it's fitting to finish this when we're looking back on the memories of the last 4 or so years, to finish with John Kiley, who has, been, I suppose, the spearhead for a lot of those memories. Again, a huge thank you to everyone listening today and that has listened over the last few years and has interacted with us and paired with us when we're giving our takes and our predictions, and so often so wrong. And a huge thank you to you, Matt, for always being there and always having your knowledge. It's incredible off the top of your head what you can do with regard results or fixtures coming up or results from years gone by. It's been a privilege, and it's only the start. Well, it's at the start, it's 200 in, but it's nowhere near the end. So I think it's fitting to leave it there. You might have your say, and we can call it a day then, because we're closing in 2 hours for the first time in a long time. So thank you to everyone that has bared with us today.
Yeah, thank Jack for your forbearance with me over the time, and your forbearance, particularly when you prompt me. May I add, into rants, and I think you have actually perfected the art of riling O'Callaghan. You know those touchy subjects, but I didn't go down the road today when I spoke about the All-Stars. But we'll be talking about the All-Stars shortly, and I would be having my say pre the announcement, and I have no doubt I'll be having my say post the announcement.
Yeah, I think when you say prompt you into I suppose a rant, prompt could be as simple as one word or 2 words, as you said there with All-Stars. But yeah, no, look, it's been a privilege for the last 200 episodes, and here's 200 more. So again, a huge thank you to everyone listening past and today. And I suppose we'll finish as always with our intro and our outro. But I think after our memories today, that'll need an upgrade for the new year. But for now, thank you to you, Matt, and thank you to everyone for listening. We'll be in touch soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Especially in the game, we get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods, and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the workout today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the Limerick brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it
no sympathy in this